Okay, so welcome again. I'm gonna post this on YouTube, but you're gonna be the ones watching it basically. But I post it for a few reasons. One is that way it's really easy for you to access. There's gonna be a YouTube playlist and you'll be able to find it. The other thing is maybe a year from now when you want to refresh your stats and you remembered hearing that lecture, but you want to kind of, you don't remember it all. You don't have to go back into Canvas, but you won't be able to do next year into this class. So it'll always be there for you and you'll be able to take a look at it. So that's why I post on YouTube. Once there's a link, I can't do a link until there's actually a video. You need a video to have a link to YouTube. But we'll make that happen and I'll show you where that is and stuff. Okay, just to let you know, this is an EVE class, which is very different than a really online class, fully online class. This is an EVE class, which means it meant to be face-to-face. And then the disaster happened, the pandemic, and now we went to online. So that's different than a regular online class where it was always intentionally online. So it's a bit different. And so what it means, one thing it means is that we have real-time lectures for the entire, basically 5 hours of class in a week. And you are expected to be able to make it. If you can't, it will be recorded, but it's definitely helpful to make it. What I want to do is I want to share my desktop, talk about what we're going to do today, and then we'll get into the course and the syllabus, and then we'll get into the class, the statistics. So let me share my desktop. And I want to remind you, just in case you want to ask questions, anytime, please interrupt. You can either do that by unmuting yourself and talking and asking a question, or you can do that by typing in the chat box. And I always have one eye on the chat box. So that's kind of where I'm going. And that's for every one of these, not just today. Okay, so it's recorded, but I'll let you know that chat is not recorded. So if you have something that you don't want on YouTube for some reason or another, put it in the chat box. If you don't care, and usually you don't care, there's nothing very personal that goes on in this class, then you could ask it too. So what we're going to do today is, oops, not Q&A yet. Well, I could do Q&A. So I'll start out, or I'll kind of throughout talk about Q&A. If you have any questions, you can ask now, you can ask later, and that is true always. Okay, this is a very different day in terms of the class. Usually, I'll start out with a 5-minute little intro into what we're doing for the day, and then you take a quiz, just to let you know that. So every day there's going to be a quiz, and that will be in Canvas. And I'll show you what those look like, et cetera, in a bit. Okay, then what we're going to do, so today's, there's no quiz, because I didn't feel comfortable giving you a quiz since we haven't had class yet. That wouldn't be fair. But on Thursday at 3:35, there's a quiz. At 3:30, I'm going to give a little intro. I'll show you the agenda for the day, spend 5 minutes, then say we're done talking, and then you go and take a 20-minute quiz. Then you come back, and then we'll do the lecture and activities. That's kind of how I do the EVE class. Okay, and what I kind of do is my feeling is the EVE class should be very much like my regular classes that I used to have before COVID happened. And we had a quiz and then we went back. So same thing, except now it's just in the online format. But today we're not doing that. Instead, I'm going to talk about the course. I'm going to go over the syllabus. I'm going to show you the Canvas and how to kind of get around things and look at them and what to expect, strategies for success, all the different things that you might want to do so that you can do well in this class. Then after that, we're going to get down to business. So we're going to do statistics. And in particular, we're going to look at variable types. Okay. And something, and this is just my style, whether you like it or not, and hopefully you do, most people do, is that I like to use a current event example to talk about what we're doing. and relate it. And the reason I like this class so much is it is really easy. They're everywhere. So, so we'll look at a Tahoe Daily Tribune article today. Okay, and we'll talk about variable types and what you can do and how you can change the variable type and what all that stuff means. We'll also talk about sampling. So the idea is if you want to conduct a study and get a sample of a bunch of people, okay, or a bunch of things, how do you do it? How do you do it so that you don't have bias? And that's hard, by the way. Okay, it's actually much harder to do than to learn about. And learning about is not that easy either, but doing is really hard. So we'll talk about sampling. And then actually, I think we're not going to do stats and charts. I had those from the last one. Then we'll get into frequency tables. So we'll talk about frequency tables. So if you have things and their frequencies, you can compile them with a table and then analyze it. So that's kind of the big plan today. Hopefully it'll go well. And hopefully, by the way, usually the internet works, but I will apologize in advance for the whole course. If the internet dies, the internet dies. It sucks, but once in a while it happened. It happened at the very worst possible time last quarter. Any guess? When do you think the worst possible time for the internet to go down was last quarter?
Finals?
Yep.
During finals?
Yep. I had a final. The final started at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. The internet was, the Canvas, not the internet, Canvas was down, which basically that was the internet for everyone because that's where the final resided. And it was a 6 o'clock final and the internet, then the Canvas went down from 5:50 to 7:30. It was a disaster. So I'm going to apologize in advance if a disaster happens. I'm hoping that never happens again. You don't know how stressed out everyone was, including myself. It was a bad day. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's all cross our fingers. Okay. And by the way, I got some good news. I almost had to cancel today. Any guess on why?
Internet?
No, internet was fine. I got something in the mail. That's a hint.
Jury duty.
Exactly. I had jury duty today. And then thank you, the jury duty got canceled. But I was ready to hit that button saying sorry.
Were you
What happens when you don't call is my question, because I got jury duty and I have not called and I might be being looked for.
Yeah, they can actually put a warrant out for your arrest. Do they? I don't think so, but they have the right to. So I try to be honest. And because I was a politician, I really can't do things like that, if you understand. That's one thing. One of the prices you pay for being a politician is that you really can't do that kind of stuff. Definitely
were you
not.
dismissed from duty?
No, it got canceled completely.
Oh.
So at least mine got canceled. I called and they said, it's been canceled. And you don't know how happy I was. So it almost happened, but we're not canceled. We're good. I mean, we're not canceling class because I'm not having jury duty. And I think that means 6 months of freedom. If not sure, but I think that's how it works. So that won't happen. But who knows if something else happens? Hopefully nothing will happen. But if my internet goes down, I apologize in advance. It doesn't happen too often. But it's life nowadays. I'm sure you're all used to it. So are there any questions at all before I start talking about the syllabus?
Can you apply for this class to be pass-fail?
Okay, so there's all kinds of issues with pass-fail. And so I very, very strongly recommend before you even think about doing that, get an appointment with a counselor. Because a lot has to do with where you're, because if you take it pass-fail, it may not transfer. Now, if you're just taking it for fun, I don't think I've ever had a student that's only taking it for fun and has no interest in getting a degree or transferring, then pass-fail is fine. But I don't think unless you're very different than anyone else I've ever had. So if you're even thinking about it, talk to a counselor, and then the counselor will talk about what you're allowed to take pass-fail and what you're not for your university that you want to transfer to. Or if you're in a university, talk to your university counselor and find out. That's not something I can do. Again, we all have our little niches, and I'm not a counselor, so I don't know what every university does, and everyone's a little different, and you know. So sorry if I can't answer it, but I can tell you counselors can, and we have great counseling. Okay, these are good questions though, and again, please keep asking questions throughout the entire course. That's the whole point of having a lecture instead of just having you read the book, is that we can converse and I can answer questions as they come. Okay, I want to move to Canvas, and I think if I remember right, it's home. Yeah. Okay, so here's the class. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and go over the syllabus and talk about, a bunch of things that you are required to do and should plan on doing. And I'll start out with the very easy one, and that is, this is elementary statistics class, Math 201. Okay. So if you don't think it is, if you thought you were in a psychology class, you probably should log out now because this is definitely statistics. So this is an enhanced virtual environment, EVE. I love that they called it EVE. I think that was kind of a creative thing by the college administration. What that means is we're in COVID times. This was meant to be face-to-face. It's not, because we're not allowed. The interesting thing is we are allowed to be for a limited amount. And I will be honest with you, there are 2 sections of face-to-face statistics. I'm not teaching them because I am the key online math instructor at Lake Tahoe Community College. And there was no reason, if they're going to have some online, some face-to-face, of course they're going to have me do the online. It was kind of that kind of thing. Not just Lake Tahoe Community College, but actually California and the US. And I'll talk about that in a bit. I have been teaching online for, I think, over 15 years now. I have been using Zoom for over 5 years. Okay, yeah. I bet you guys have been using it for 1, right? I've been using Zoom for over 5. I've been doing webinars for over 15 years. So I literally am the statewide person who does this stuff. So of course, I miss teaching face-to-face. I like it too. But of course, they're going to have me do the online because I've got the experience. Okay, I give workshops for national workshops on how to do this. So just let you know, I know what I'm doing on this one. I have experience and specifically in this, but especially fully online. This fully online EVE, a little different. And because it's EVE, we have specific dates, Tuesday and Thursday, from 3:30 to 5:55. Okay, and I want to let you know, and I'll probably do this, is that we're supposed to take a short break halfway through, and I'll probably do that so that I don't kill your brains and my brain too, I guess. I think it's a good idea, and who knows, I might need a restroom break after 2.5 hours, before 2.5 hours. Today I'm fine so far, but there will probably be a 10-minute break. Okay, and that's because trying to model this like a regular class. It's a 5-unit class, and I want to let you know what that means. That's more units than most classes. And the reason for that is when I created this class, and I really did create this class at our college, we need to make sure that it transfers. And I will let you know my number 1 priority for this class, absolute number 1, is that it transfers in terms of creating this class. Because if it doesn't transfer, my guess is you would all drop. Am I right? Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. Okay, so this transfers. Okay, I get phone calls from universities, looking into the class to see if I'm doing the right stuff, and they always say yes. That's the good news. Okay, now transfers for undergrad. If you're getting a PhD, then sometimes you need a specialized class. That's a whole different thing. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's because PhD is a whole different thing. But for undergraduate, this always works. Okay, transfers to the UCs, transfer to the Cal States, transfers to the UNRs, it transfers to every private university I've ever had a conversation with. So it does transfer. But had I made it 4 units, it doesn't. It wouldn't transfer because there's a lot of material. And I need to cover all the material that is required. And one of the things I do a lot of is I go to conferences, and when one of the big points of going to conferences, so I can talk to other statistics professors, find out what they're teaching, so that I could be like them, so that we're all on the same boat and making sure we're all doing the right material, so that it transfers. So the bad news is it's a lot of material. Okay, if you do not have a lot of time for this class, you won't make it. Then you probably should drop it. This does take a lot of time. It's not just the 5 hours of lecture. There's going to be homework. Okay, I guess I shouldn't call it homework. There's assignments, because nowadays everything's homework because you're sitting at home right now probably. But there's assignments, there's tests, there's going to be projects, there's going to be studying, there's going to be watching videos. There's a lot to this class. Okay, if you do the hard work, there's a very good chance you'll pass. But if you don't, you won't pass. So I want to let you know that that's a big deal. Okay, as I mentioned, my name is Larry Green. I like to go by my first name, Larry, but whatever you call me, I'll answer. So, and I've been teaching forever, and you'll get to know me as we go, and hopefully I'll get to know all you too. All right, because I've been teaching online so long, I do internet a lot. So one thing is you can contact me via this email address. I use my Gmail address because it's just so much better than the college's email. But if you contact me using the inbox, that gets sent to my college email and it gets forwarded to my Gmail, and it's the same thing. You won't know the difference. So just let you know, I'm on email an unhealthy amount of time per day. Usually I check my email probably over 100 times a day. So if you email me, I'll be answering. But I will let you know just about me. I am an early to bed, early to rise person. You email me after 9:30, you're going to hear from me at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning. Okay, sometimes 4, by the way. So don't expect any answers, to me late night, which may not be to you late night. Just let you know. But I will answer your email. And if I don't within a day, then that means the internet probably died and it never got to me. Okay, because I do answer. I'm very good about that. Okay, we all have our pros and cons, and one is I get back to people really fast. The webinar and office hours, the good news is I've never been Zoom, I've never been, I'm blanking, Zoom banged. So we can use this link that you're on now for the whole quarter. And so far it's always worked. But if you click on that, it basically takes you to the link we're in now. So that's going to be the Zoom that we use. It won't change unless some idiot comes in and does something bad, and then I have to put security stuff in. So far that hasn't happened. So thank God. Okay, so then, again, I've been teaching this class online so much, I've had a lot of opportunity to create online materials. Okay, so in particular, I have created full-length YouTube lectures. So let me click on that. That takes you to a playlist I have. And these are YouTube lectures. There are 13 of them. Any guess why there's 13 lectures?
$13 units.
Well, we're a 5-unit class.
13 chapters.
Yeah, there's 13 chapters in the book. So what I did is I created a full-length YouTube video for each of them. Okay, unfortunately, I wrote them, some years ago. So they're a little outdated in one particular thing. So I might actually be redoing them this quarter. And that is the calculator. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So there may be replacement videos. That's my big project, but you don't know how many hours it takes to do each video. So we'll see how much time I have to do it. The first chapter, I won't have to redo, but we'll see after that. So I may be redoing these and then they'll be not outdated at all. So that is the full-length videos. And I do recommend you watch them. Okay. And there we go. Okay. Then I also created short introductory videos for each week. And those are like just 2 minutes each or so. Some are like that. Some are a minute and a half, some are 3 minutes. And that's just a hello for the week. This is the kind of material that we're doing. And I purposely did those at the college some years ago. So if you know our college well, you won't recognize the furniture because I did it before the new furniture came in. But one of the nice things is because we can't go to the college, it's your one chance to like feel at home at the college because you can watch videos in the college. And they're just little easy videos, very relaxing. Then I also have worked out example problems. So for every type of problem that you're required to do, or just about every type, I created a video on how to solve those problems. Okay, and these are new. And they're new. One thing is I had time to do them last quarter because we've changed calculators. We used to use a TI-84 calculator because that worked well, but that is ancient. No one uses handheld calculators anymore in the real world, right? What do they use now? And no, I don't expect you to do everything in your head. your brain calculator, no. What do they use now? Any thoughts? It's obvious.
The internet.
Yeah, these the internet, smartphones and computers, right?
Wait, but can I ask, for this course, is a TI-84 calculator still okay to have?
You can have it, but you can't use it on the exams.
And we're not allowed a calculator on the exams.
Huh?
We're not allowed a calculator on the exams.
So here's what I did, and I'll show you today. I created a calculator for this class. So I am a programmer. Okay, I'm a nerdy guy, and it's what I do as a hobby. And I programmed a calculator just for this class that does everything you need in this class. And we've been using it a year now. And every quarter, every time I get feedback from students, I do what they ask for and I make it better. So last quarter, that was the #1 thing that they were happy with in the class, was that they didn't have to use a TI calculator because this was so much easier. So I promise you it's easier. And we'll see it today, by the way. And trust me on that one. The reason is that the TI calculator isn't just statistics. So it's got a zillion buttons and functions. And you got to remember and memorize all the different things you have to do for this particular thing. And it's also doesn't have full screen, so it's not wordy. It just has all abbreviations that are hard to understand. You'll see my calculator is easy. I promise you. Okay. Okay. And it's used now by a lot, not just our college, by the way. Okay. And it's free, by the way. I'd never charge you. So hopefully you'll believe me, but trust me on this one.
So I'm assuming we can use your calculator for the test, right?
Yeah. So what'll happen is, because I am a coder and I know how to do this, when you're in the test and you get to, let's say, problem 6, and you need to use a calculator, it'll actually be embedded in the problem because it's all online, and it'll be embedded in the problem itself. You don't even have to click to find the calculator. It's there. Does that make sense? So any problem that needs a calculator, the calculator will be on the problem. Does that make sense? And that's why it's so much easier than handheld. Okay, and trust me on this, and you'll see 0 students complained last quarter. Okay, they complained about other things, like how hard the class was, but nobody complained about the calculator, not one. Okay, just to give you an idea. And by the way, I had a lot of students, 50 students. So that was the #1 thing they liked, and hopefully you'll be like them, because my guess is you will. And if there's anything you don't like about it, like there's something confusing, you let me know, and I do what you ask, because I can program. I'm a coder, so I'll make it whatever you want it to look like. Okay, so that's the good news. Now, if if you want to be able to have a button saying do problem 13 for me, and it just does it without you doing anything, I can't code that. But it does all the statistics. Okay, and we'll be playing around with that, especially Thursday is really the first day that we touch the calculator. Today's like a vocabulary day for this chapter. Chapter 1 is a vocabulary chapter. There's not much to calculate. So that's how we'll do it. Okay, let's see, where was I? There are also interactive applets, and those are going to be mostly used when you're studying for the exams. I've created some applets for the exams, and they're interactive. So you'll get to see those. I'll let you look at those yourself. And then the textbook. So one of the things, my mission in life over the last 5 years, and really for over 20 years, but especially the last 5, has been to make sure that no student drops a class because they can't afford the materials. So the cost for this course, outside of if you had to pay for tuition, I can't do anything about that. If you came out of the high school full time and you're here, you don't have to pay for that even. But the cost for this course is $0. Okay, so the book is free, the calculator is free, the homework system is free, and if you've had other classes at our class, any of you had another class at our college and it didn't cost you money for the book? Anyone else have one of those? Or did every class cost you money at our college? Not seeing y'all jump in.
I don't think I paid for any textbooks.
Okay, so that was me. So I led the college and I led the state. Okay, I've actually written over $10 million of grants to make sure that textbooks are free, not just in math. So that has been my mission. And if you don't like that, then you can get mad at me. But I've been doing that. And so every math class at Oracle College is free, every psychology class, I think all but one is free. All the science classes are free, just about all of them. So everything is free, and that's something that I've been doing. I've been leading that effort. If you don't like it, it's my fault, sorry. But that's been my mission. So this one's free. And if you click on it, this is called Introductory Statistics with Multimedia and Interactivity. So I want to give you a little history on this. It started being called Introductory Statistics. And I have a vision. And my vision is that textbooks are an idea that happened thousands of years ago, and we can do better. That thousands of years ago we couldn't, but now we can put things in that we couldn't before. And things that you could put in, so let me just grab a section. So how about chapter 7? I don't know. And if I go to, I don't know, using the central limit theorem, then here's the book. And Barbara Lowski was the main author of this, who was a friend of mine, actually. Good person. But if you scroll a bit, I think this one works. Watch, I picked one that didn't. Yeah, there we go. Then there's an embedded video. These are my videos. So while you're reading the book, you get to the point, and then you can watch a video on what just you read about. And then you could read some more. And then below the video is a little interactive thing. There's a slider, and you can kind of watch the central limit theorem happen visually. Again, right now, I don't expect you to understand it, but by the time we're into it, you should. And so I put in all kinds of things that are interactive videos. I actually have a couple games that I created, so you can play and learn as you're playing. Also, the calculator is embedded throughout the book. Anytime it uses a calculator, that I put that calculator in, so that you can use it as you read. So I think that is maybe you don't agree, but I think that is a better way of a textbook than all static. Okay, if you don't like the videos, you don't have to watch them. You can just do the static part. But the point is, they're there for you. So that's the textbook. And as I mentioned, it's free. So definitely no charge. If you want a printed copy, you do have to pay for the ink and the paper if you want to hit print. And you better have a lot of paper because it's hundreds of pages. Okay, so just let you know that could cost you, but yeah, there's no requirement to use a printed copy. Any questions so far?
I'm a little bit scared.
Oh, me too. Don't worry.
You scared of the book or?
Math in general, especially statistics.
Right, and that's
You're
what.
not alone, Jacqueline.
And that's what me and Brawley are here for. To help you, to hold your hand when you need it. Not, by the way, not physically. We're not allowed to do that. In fact, I think even if without COVID, we're not allowed to do that because there's all kinds of issues. But the point is, we can figuratively hold your hand, walk you through this stuff. Whenever you have questions, you can ask them. And there's a lot of help for you. If you have no time, if you only have like 3 hours a week to work on this class, then you shouldn't be scared. You should just drop the class because it won't happen. So it does take time.
I'll make time. Believe me.
Yeah. So if you're willing to take the time, then it should work for you. Okay. I can't guarantee, but typically.
I do have one question about how you've structured the modules in Canvas, just to make sure I know where the assignments are. So are they just under the little header that says assignments in each module? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's actually a few ways of getting to them. That's one way. There's another way too. And I'll show you the different ways.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's see, how many
'Cause
hours?
I like to have everything written down.
Yeah. So I got a question. How many hours in a week? It all depends on the student. It's not an answer I can give you because some people work really fast, some people don't work fast. So the how many hours is not one I can answer, but it's going to be more than an hour. I'll tell you that. It's not like didn't spend an hour working in the class, I'm done. It is going to be a lot of time, but I can't tell you exactly how much because it really depends on your style. Everyone's different. Okay, but it will take time. After a few weeks, you'll get used to it, and then you'll have an idea for you personally. But it's not like everyone takes 10 hours a week. It doesn't quite work that way. Okay, an hour a day is a little bit fast. Hour and a half a day might be a little more average-ish. So in fact, the state says that for every unit, it's supposed to be 2 hours outside, but that's supposed to, it really depends on the student. So sorry if I can't answer that question, but I just can't. Hopefully you understand. I'm not going to read the whole course description and student learning outcomes because you won't understand most of it. Because if you know like really well all these things, you don't belong in the class because that means you already took it. So I'll let you read through it. I will tell you though, I try to make it easy and standard. I don't know about easy, but standard. And I grade on a 90, 80, 70, 60 scale. So you know what your grade is. If you're getting an 84%, you're getting a B. Okay. So I try to make it simple. I think most instructors do that. I'm not sure, but I think so.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know every professor is different, but do you round grades? Like if it's by like a point, some very close to let's say if it's like an 89.6, would you round that or would you just leave it as an 89?
So here's what I do. If I have a student that's actually clearly working hard, then I go for the rounding. If I have a student that like isn't doing any work, I usually don't do the rounding.
Okay.
So, come into class, that helps. And then the rounding happens. So I tend to do it that way. Sound fair? So if you come to every class and do all the assignments, then yes, I'll definitely round for you. Okay. So the assignments, which I'll show you in a bit what they look like, those used to be called homework, but with COVID, everything is homework, right? Because literally you could take this entire class in your bedroom and never leave your bedroom. You'd have to hire someone to bring you food, okay? And maybe have a bathroom in your bedroom too. That would help or get disgusting. But the point is, so homework doesn't work anymore. There's traditional homework, but that word doesn't work today. So I call them assignments. We have real-time quizzes. And as I mentioned, those are going to be happening at 3:35 every Tuesday and Thursday, unless there's an exam. And not today either, because I can't give you a quiz today. Okay. Where do we stop by? I don't know what you mean by that. I'm looking at predicted tutoring schedule.
Sorry, it's coming up. It's in the syllabus.
So where do you find the tutoring, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't think there's any face-to-face tutoring, right?
No, it's all going to be online.
Yeah.
But-
So you stop by in your bedroom or wherever you happen to be. you hit the Lake Tahoe Community College button that says Cranium Cafe, and that's where you log in. Okay. Let's see. Looking for predicted tutoring schedule. Yeah, 20 hours outside of class. Please don't hit stuff. Yeah. Oh, that was probably okay. Yeah, so you don't stop by for tutoring, you log in for tutoring. Okay, there are exams. So the exams are May 6th, May 27th, and June 22nd. And they're a big part of the grade. I'll get to what they're going to be, the kind of the process of them in a little bit once I'm done with this part. But those are exams, and the final is comprehensive. The other two exams are not comprehensive. Okay, there are projects, 2 projects. They are due April 27th and June 8th. So those are the 2 projects for this class. And again, everything is done online, but they're projects, and they're group projects, which we'll talk about in a bit. Okay, so now comes the online webinars and office hours. Okay, so that's, I think I've talked about that already. That's where we are now. So if you're here, then you know where you are. And if you click that button, then that's the login information. It's always the same link. Okay, unless I get Zoom bombed, and then I'd have to change it, but hopefully I don't. It hasn't happened. Okay, now the exam policy. Okay, so here's the exams. It shouldn't say if it could be done online. It is done online. There's still a possibility, small possibility, that we'll be able to do something like in late June, but I doubt it, where I can offer some face-to-face final exam, but I don't think they'll let me do that. So I think it's a no on that one. I don't get to choose. That's the college's thing. But what I don't believe in is making you memorize formulas. So what I allow you to do is for the regular exams, you get a single 3x5 note card. And you could write on front and back anything you want. Again, I don't look at what you've written. I don't care, but you definitely want to write formulas on. And for the final exam, because that's comprehensive, that you're gonna be allowed a full paper, front and back. So it should be enough to put the formulas on. Okay. The exams are going to be using what's called Proctorio. I don't know if you've used that before. It's a pain in the butt, but again, we have to deal with this fully online, can't go to a library kind of stuff. So it's a system where you have a webcam. You turn the webcam on and it watches. And I want to let you know, the only person who has access to watch that video is me. And 90% of the time, 90% of the students, I don't even bother looking, because I've been teaching long enough where I can read someone's exam. And if they didn't cheat, I can tell. So the only reason I do it is if I can tell they're cheating, and then I have proof that they're cheating because we got a video of it. Okay, so you don't have to like worry about some evil thing looking at you, because most likely it'll never be looked at, the video. But if you don't have a computer with a video, one thing that you can do is you can check out a computer from the college for the entire quarter for free. Okay, by the way, anyone go to Lake Tahoe Unified School District and get a computer when you were a kid? Okay, if you didn't like that, that was my fault personally, because I made that happen. And if you did like it, then that was me also personally, because I made it happen. Just let you know that. So because of that, I was able to start out the computer rental program at our college because I knew how to do it, because I made it happen at the Unified District. And I started it at our college before COVID actually was even around. And then because I started it when COVID got there, they were able to buy computers for everyone. So if anyone needs a computer, I will let you know if you're a big gamer, they won't work for you, because they're Chromebooks and they're not going to do like serious gaming, but they work great for this class. So if you have any computer issues, you do have to come to Tahoe to pick it up and come to Tahoe to drop it off when you're done. Okay, any questions at all on the exams? And I'll spend a lot of time reviewing, we're not ready to review for an exam yet. Any questions? Again, so it's done at home. And my rule, by the way, is that during the exam, you're not allowed to talk to any other adult. And my definition of adult is the ancient definition. Do you know what that is? Post-pubescent. Okay, so the idea is you can't talk to high school kids either. Okay, so if you have a child that's 8 years old, of course you got to help your kid. If you have a child that's 15, they can help themselves. That's my feeling, and 15-year-olds should be able to. You say, wait 2 hours. So that's my one rule about during the exam, talking to others. Okay, so the online assignment policy is they're due by the due date. Okay, they're due on Sundays, but you should do it by Thursday, but actually Thursday or Tuesday, I should say, not just Thursday. So whenever we're going to be talking about that material, whenever we're going to get quizzed on the material, I strongly recommend you finish all the homework so that you're ready to do the quiz, because that's your practice to be able to do the quiz. So that's the main thing. Okay. So in-class quizzes, I've kind of talked about already. If you can't log in, if there's something going on and you're not going to be able to make it, send me an email saying I'm not going to be able to make it tomorrow for the quiz, and then I'll give you an extra assignment to do to replace the quiz. And that'll be a written assignment from the book, at which you write it down on paper, you take a picture of it, and then email me the picture. And then I grade that like I would grade a quiz. Any questions on that? Okay. And I figure everyone's got a smartphone now, so that means you can take pictures. There are 2 projects. Okay, so there are 2 projects for the class. I'm not going to get into all the details of the projects because we don't have all of the material yet. But here's the one thing I want you to do now. So these projects involve partnerships. And I strongly recommend having 3 in a partnership. You're allowed to have 2 if you can't find 3. You can't have 1, can't be by yourself, or there's basically I don't allow you to pass because of the 30% penalty, which means you can't pass the project. Can't get a passing grade if you don't work with a partner or 2 partners. All right, just let you know, let's suppose that a project on average was 9 pages. If you have 3 of you, how many pages do you think you're gonna have to write? I hope you can do that basic math. Okay, if there's 2 of you, how many you got to write? That's a little harder. So if there's 3 of you, you're gonna have to write 3 pages for each. If there's 2 of you, you're gonna have to write 4.5 pages each. What sounds better? Okay, 3 is better, isn't it? Less work. So I strongly recommend having 3 of you. Also, if one person drops a class in your partnership, then you're still okay because you still have a partnership. Whereas if you're only working with one other person, the other person drops, you're screwed. So I strongly recommend you have 3 people in each partnership. All right, so here's what we do right now. We're gonna get partners. Okay, and by the way, if you don't like your partner for project 1, then you can change and have different projects, partners for project 2. So what I want you to do, you can use a chat box, you can talk, whatever. Find a partner, find some partners. Give you a couple minutes. Type something in the chat box, looking for a partner, or reply to someone else. I got you. Let's be partners. I don't expect you to know each other, so I'll give you a minute, 2 minutes. That's all it should take. Everyone needs one. And make sure you write down, if you do find partners, write down who it is so you can communicate later. And I see there are 12 of you. Oh, look at this. It's a multiple of 3. We got lucky. I didn't check to see if there are any doubles. But I don't think anyone's logged in twice in the same screen. So I'll give you a minute or 2. Why didn't that get water? And just a note, you communicate however you want to communicate. You know, after whether you want to give each other your emails out or your phone, that's all up to you. Whatever works for you is the way you should communicate. But definitely you are able to send each other a message by using the inbox function if you don't feel comfortable giving out your information. That's a college message. So just like let you know that there's lots of ways of communicating and you're responsible for doing that. Okay, you don't need to tell me, by the way. I mean, you can tell me, but I'm not jotting it down or anything. It's because it's totally your responsibility. I'm just giving you the time to make it happen. And I'm a little worried about those who didn't show up today. So if you're listening to this as an archive video, then you're gonna need to go find a partner, okay? And hopefully on Thursday, you'll find one. We still have a few weeks. But this is something you don't have to know any statistics to find partners. Okay, anyone need more time? Let me know now. Everyone good? I'm not seeing anyone saying they need more time, so I think I'm going to continue on. So hopefully you all have partners and hopefully you all have groups of 3. Okay. So let's continue on. I do want to let you know, and we'll talk about this later too, is that there's these due dates for the project, but a couple days before, if you can show me your project, I'll give you feedback so that anything that is lacking, I'll let you know what's lacking, and here's what needs to be fixed, and you can make it better. And I'll definitely let you know that those who don't do that almost never get an A, because it's really hard to know exactly what you need to do, even though I do my best to try to tell you. So it really does help to show it to me. Okay, let's go to office hours. So I have office hours 5 days a week. So my office hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10:10 to 11:10, and Tuesday, Thursday after class. And I want to let you know, just a heads up, if you get on at 10:10 and you hear me talking some really weird stuff, like, well, you take the partial derivative of x squared cosine of xy over secant of x and use the chain rule and the product rule, don't get scared, because I also teach calculus. And it just means you got to wait a bit, and then I'll get to you and I'll answer your question. So just because you're hearing me talk calculus does not mean that you're in the wrong place, because I teach calculus also. And those students, the calculus students, might come for help too. So just because you hear calculus does not mean you blew it. It just means that you just got to be patient until I'm done explaining to that student, and then I'll work with you. So that's a big warning, and especially Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because again, the Tuesday, Thursday right after your class, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday is right after their class. So again, feel free to come in, but don't like get really scared if I start talking stuff that you have no idea what I'm talking about, like a different language, because it's going to feel like it. Unless you've had calculus, but most of you haven't. As I mentioned, computers are available for checkout from the library. You need to let me know, because what I do is I forward your name to the library, and then they will check out a computer for you. That way we don't have like somebody taking a half a unit so they can steal a computer. So that it's just a way of keeping people from stealing. If you have a learning disability, then or a physical disability, by the way, then if you need any accommodation, whether that means extra time for the exam or some kind of Zoom in device or something like that, then we will make sure that the accommodation is met. But you need to contact our Disability Resource Center. And I have some links, an email link, and also their webpage link and their phone number. And then they will work with you. They are the ones, I'm not an expert, so they're the ones that are going to figure out what your needs are. And then they'll get back to me and you to make sure that it all happens. And I will make sure it happens.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 broken wrists.
Uh-huh.
And my only concern is taking notes. Is there any way that, I'm sure it's only gonna be for a few weeks, but do you think I'll be okay with not taking or like?
Okay, so there's a few things that you could do. One is realize that this is being recorded.
Yeah.
So you can always go back and watch on YouTube.
Okay.
The other thing you might want to do, maybe you can see if anyone else is taking notes, and you can have them give you the notes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll do that.
The other thing I can do for you, we're not there yet because I'm just going over the syllabus, but when I actually start lecturing on statistics, I'm going to be typing out a bunch of notes, and I can send those to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Like I said, I'm here to work with you. What I can't do is miraculously heal your hand. I wish I could, but that's not what I do. So sorry about that. But I can tell you the statistical probability that your hand will heal within 2 weeks, given the fact that, if you give, with a little research, I look at the data and stuff, but I can't heal your hand. Sorry.
Okay.
But those are the things that I can do for you. you can also call the Disability Resource Center and see what they can do for you, because they have all kinds of stuff. Okay. And if your hands don't heal by the exam, we'll make it work for you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And you should definitely contact the Disability Resource Center because they're the experts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And we'll make it work. That's a promise. Okay. Tutoring, we've talked about it already. Braulio. And Braulio is not the only tutor, by the way, but he's our embedded tutor. He's the expert for this particular class. But we also have, there are other statistics tutors if Braulio is not around, because he is not 24/7. He sleeps too. And he has classes, by the way. But he's around a bunch, but there's other people around too. And so they're available, and they're available in the Cranium Cafe, and this is the link to it. Okay, and then there's the embedded tutors. Okay, I want to let you know a little word on honesty. First thing is, I have been teaching this class for 25 years. I can tell. If someone cheats, I'll know it. Okay, so don't go there. Okay, I mean, I'm good at this class. Okay, if you don't cheat, you have nothing to worry about. But don't cheat. It just don't do it. Okay, you're not going to get away with it. So all kinds of bad things can happen. So don't cheat, and then you're good. And that's the main thing with the honesty. Here's the schedule. I'm not going to read through all of it, but you will see we are in 4-6, Introduction to Statistics in Chapter 1. I've gone over the syllabus. And that is all of that. And just to let you know, see where it says course summary? That also gives you all the assignments. So there's different ways of finding assignments. This is one. If you go to the bottom of the syllabus, you'll see on the 8th, we have a quiz. On Sunday, you have Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 regular assignments. So that's one way of finding out where all the assignments and when they are. And that works well. And I've also, I believe, it's been a long time since I actually looked at the modules, but I think I put them in. I tend to not be a procrastinator, which means I did it a long time ago. So here's the modules. And you're going to see that there's lots of resources, and I broke them down. I broke them down in by chapter. So instead of like a YouTube playlist of all the videos, there's a link to the ones that are relevant for this week. So I'll let you look through those. And each module has something like that. What I think I need to do now, by law, is take a break, because I have to let you have a break. So I'm looking at 4:47. I'm going to pause, and I hope this works. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to pause the recording. Hopefully this works. So what I'm going to do is I want to share with you just a news article. And I do that a lot because, again, my philosophy is to try to make this class valuable. Okay, valuable, and not just value because you get to transfer, but valuable like you're going to use the content. You're going to understand it. You're going to be able to kind of read news articles and say, yeah, that one makes sense. I believe it, or that one doesn't. Forget that. And also not just news articles, but journal articles too. We'll talk about that. And I'll show you some other things as we get in the class that are really useful. So I'm going to share my desktop again, but it's going to look very different. Okay. So I know a lot of you aren't from Tahoe, but this is one of our major, I guess, newspapers, except you don't call it papers anymore. So news sites, I guess. And that's the Tahoe Daily Tribune. And what I thought I'd do is I'd scroll down, because the Tribune does this, and Tribune does a poll. Actually, let's go here. There we go. So here's the poll. And the question is, have you started your spring cleaning and defensible space yet? All right, so by the way, if you're not from Tahoe, you may not know what this means. So basically our biggest disaster that happens in Tahoe is fire. Forest fires are really bad. And I know forest fires sound like they happen like in the deep forest, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them happen near houses or whatever. But really important is to not have your house burned down, because that would suck. Okay, I don't want my house to burn down. So the idea is you want to like move the pine needles away from the house, get rid of the pine cones that might have fallen, so that if there's a fire, nothing near the house burns and then your house stays unburnt. Okay, it's not 100% effective, but it's pretty good. So I'm going to ask you, we're going to do this a lot. Put in the chat box, which of the four is what you are? Yes, and my neighborhood is FireWise certified. Yes, and I have defensible space and have taken the steps to harden my home. No, but I plan on doing it once more snow melts. Or no, I never do anything. So let's see if you can pop in the chat box your answer. So everyone should be putting in the chat box your answer. Don't do anything, okay? No, plan on doing it once more snow melts. I have defensible space. Well, we're all over the place. No, but I plan on once all the snow melts. The second one, oh, it's a tie so far. I don't do anything. Look at that. We're a three-way tie. This is going to be tough. I may have to break the tie. Anyone else? Okay, I don't hear any others. I can't force you to answer, and again, some of you don't like live in a place where there's fire, so it doesn't mean anything. All right, I actually have defensible space and have taken steps to harden my home. Okay, so I'm on the second one, and that makes 3 of us on the second one, so I'm gonna go for the majority. And I'm gonna click the yes, and I'm gonna vote. And I already voted. All right. Let me hit that button. See, the problem is I lectured on this at noon. So it does know I voted twice. So I can view results. Okay, so here's the results. Okay. So no, I plan on doing it once more snow melts. Yes, I have defensible space is next. Yes, my neighborhood is certified and I never do anything is the last one. All right, so I want to look at this particular article and this particular poll, and I want to kind of analyze it in terms of statistics. So the first thing when you're looking at a study and thinking about writing a study is you have to decide what kind of answers you're going to get. And there's 2 main categories. One is when the answers are numbers, and the other is when the answers are words. What do we have? This should be obvious. What's this poll?
Words.
Yeah, these are words. Okay. No one's going to answer 72. You're going to answer, yes, I have defensible space and I've taken steps to harden my home. Those are words. Okay. They're very different and very different way of treating words using statistics and treating numbers using statistics. Any questions on that idea? Okay. The other big thing, and we'll get into the details in a little bit of all of this, is we've looked at our total voters. There are 112 total voters. So do we know about the entire Lake Tahoe community? What do you think? Do we know that 47% of people in Lake Tahoe, of all people in Lake Tahoe, have not started doing anything, but they plan once the snow melts. Do we
No,
know that?
no,
Isn't there,
especially
like, a-
since.
Oh. Okay.
Wait, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, isn't there like a special like term for that where it's like pulling a certain group of people? We were just talking about this in my pre-stats class and I forgot what the term was.
That's okay because we're going to have all the terms today. So right now is do we know or do we not know? And then we'll get into all the terms. And the answer is we don't know about everyone because do you know how many people there are around Lake Tahoe? Around 40,000-ish.
And I'm pretty sure that newspaper is more commonly read in South Lake Tahoe than in North Lake because I live in North Lake and I've never heard of that newspaper.
Really?
People
Never
up here
heard of
read like Sierra Sun.
Huh.
People up here read Sierra Sun. That's,
Okay. Yep.
that's
And
what
that's
it
another
is.
issue. But some people in North Tahoe do it. So, but most don't, maybe. I don't live in North Tahoe, by the way. So the only time I go to North Tahoe is when I ride my bike around the lake, by the way, which is every year. So that's an issue right there is that North Tahoe people may not even do this. So we didn't really get them. So the point is that this sample may not be representative of the population because the North Tahoe people don't even know this thing. Okay. But it's even worse than that. The only ones that answer are the ones that answer these kind of questions. And that's a very special kind of person. And that kind of person might be more likely to like play when it's snowing. And then when it's done snowing, they, who knows, but maybe when it's done snowing, they stop playing and they have time to start dealing with their defensive space. And that might be why there's so many people that said, no, but they're going to plan when snow melts. I don't know for sure, but that could be, and that would be bias. And we call that bias when the sample is not representative of the population because of how you conducted the study. Any questions on that idea? Let me give you another idea about bias. It's my favorite example because everyone can remember it. So if I surveyed my first class that I ever taught and wanted to find out the average male height of college students, any guess on what I would have gotten? And it was a pre-calculus class. Any guess?
5'4".
Okay, 7 feet tall. That was the average male height of the first class I ever taught. Okay. Do you think that would be a biased study if I did that? Very. So just let you know, give you a little reason why this all happened is it was at UCLA. And you can probably guess who these students all were.
Basketball team?
It was a basketball team. Yeah. The basketball coach had them all take my class. He didn't tell me ahead of time. And they walked in one at a time, having to bend down to get through the doorway. And it was the most amazingly tall class I've ever had. So that would be about as biased as you can possibly get. So you're doing a sample, and that sample has nothing to do with the population. Any questions on that? Okay, so that's an example of bias. So it's tough. So here's the next question. Here's the tougher question. Any suggestions if you wanted to really do a survey of people around our lake and not have a biased study, how would you do it? Obviously not this way. Any thoughts? Because all research has to do that kind of stuff. Any thoughts on how you would get a good sample? So it's not just the people who answer kind of thing. Okay, so I don't expect you all to know. So if you don't know, that's okay. If you don't know in 40 minutes, that's not okay, because that's what I'm about to talk about.
Is it a cluster sample?
That's going to be one possibility, but of course, most people don't know what that means. But that's going to be one possibility of doing it. And there's going to be some others too. So let me go through. So now I'm going to go through the different, I'm going to go through a couple definitions first, and then we'll get into the different sampling techniques. But I want to kind of talk about it with an example where you can actually read an article and then see. So first thing is a quick definition, and that is a variable is called quantitative. Very important definition. If the possible outcomes are numbers. A variable is called qualitative if the possible outcomes are not numbers. Was this study quantitative or qualitative?
Qualitative.
Yeah, this one's definitely qualitative because the answers were words, right? So I gave you this as an example because I think it's easy to understand that this is qualitative. There's no question about it. Okay. Can you think of a survey question? Okay, a study that would be quantitative. There's a million of them. Good number of, yeah. So if you want to find out what's the average number of cats in households, then that would be quantitative. And what you always want to think about is what is a survey question you would ask? And what you would ask is, how many cats are in your house? And if you ask me, the answer is 1, which some of you saw. Okay. And then some of the others would say 0. Some of you would say 2. Then there's that cat person who's got 7. Okay. Notice that the answers are numbers. And that's the important thing. Any questions on the idea of quantitative versus qualitative? Okay, what if you wanted to kind of get the idea of the percentage of people in America who lost their jobs because of COVID? Would that be a qualitative or a quantitative study? So if you wanted the percentage of people who lost their jobs, let's see what we get in the chat, or what you say. Okay, so Aaliyah, that's correct. It's qualitative. And the reason, this is where you have to be very careful. The percentage of people is a number, but the survey question is, did you lose your job during COVID? And if you ask me, I think you all know, I didn't because I'm teaching. So my answer is no. It's not 7, it's not 14, it's no. So yes, no questions are qualitative. So you have to be careful about hearing the percentage of people. That sounds like a number. What you're interested in is not the same thing as what the survey question is. So you always want to, in your mind, think about what is the survey question? How will that question be answered? And it might not be a person, by the way. It might be something like, how much food does your cat eat? And you're not going to ask the cat, how much food do you eat? Because it's just going to say meow. You're going to observe the cat, and then you're going to measure how much food the cat eats. Okay, so not everything is a survey question of a person. Sometimes it's data collected. And if that data collected is words, then it's qualitative. If it's numbers, it's quantitative. Any questions on that? Any questions? Okay, let me move on to the next biggie. And that is, since it's the name of this class, a statistic is a number calculated from sample data. Okay, can you think of an example or two of a statistic? If you look at a bunch of numbers, a bunch of data, what might you calculate? Can you think of it?
Does it have to be true, or can it just be like, oh, this would be?
I mean, it's not a true false thing. You're going to calculate something. So what might you calculate? Okay, let me give you some examples because I'm not seeing y'all jumping in. The average of all the numbers, right? And that's called the mean, by the way. And that would be a number that you calculate from the data, the average or the mean. Another you might calculate is the maximum number. It's an easy calculation but you do have to order them first to see which is the biggest. And that would be a number that is calculated from the data. Do you see? There are a lot of numbers, and we're going to spend a lot of time in this class talking about the different statistics, especially Thursday, by the way. Okay, whereas a parameter is a number calculated from the population data. Okay, so sometimes you do things from samples, sometimes you do things from populations. Okay, usually you don't know the parameter, but you do know the statistic because you've collected data. Very easy to calculate a mean or an average, and that's easy. But if I asked you what is the average weight of Americans, of all Americans, do you think you could tell me the exact average weight? Not a chance, because you would have to weigh every American. Do you know how many Americans there are? It's like 340 million of them. By the time you're done weighing them, then they've gained weight. Okay, just to give you a statistic, by the way, I read this recently, is that, what do you think? Do you think there's been any change in the past year on the weight of the average American, adult American?
Yes.
Yes. Any guess on what is the average amount of weight gain in the last 12 months?
25
adults?
pounds.
29 pounds. 29 pounds. Okay. Now they don't know the exact amount because they didn't weigh me. So I know they don't know the exact amount. Okay. And by the way, I might have gained a half a pound. I'm basically the same as I've been. But I didn't gain 29 pounds, that's for sure. Some of you might have, I don't know. But the point is they did a sample, and then based on the sample, they said, that's probably a good guess, and we'll just publish that as the American. And that's how statistics usually works. Sometimes that's done well, and sometimes it's not done well. And we're going to learn in this class how to tell and how to do it well. Any questions on this statistic versus parameter? Another major statistic and parameter is proportion. So if you want to know the proportion of Americans who voted, then that would be a parameter. You would use a survey of maybe a couple thousand Americans asking if they voted, and that would be a statistic. Do you see the difference?
Sorry, is there any way for you to make the text on your screen bigger?
Sure. That is really easy. Watch this. The hardest part is moving the Zoom stuff. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to do it later. Okay, so now one of the hardest things is not having bias. So just to get into a couple things, you can't survey every American. Do you agree? It'd take too long. It's just not going to happen. And even if you had an unlimited amount of time, you're not going to be able to get to them all. Even the census doesn't survey everyone because they can't find all the homeless people. Just let you know. I have a friend who works for the census when they do a census. So you can't survey every American, so you do a sample. And similarly, let's say you work for the Forest Service and you want to find out the average height of the pine trees in the Sierra Nevadas. Do you think they can measure the height of every pine tree? Not a chance. Do you know how many pine trees there are in the Sierra Nevada mountains? Okay, again, way too many to do. So what you do is you collect a sample and you try to avoid bias. Any questions on that idea? So let me talk about all the different types, or a bunch of types of ways of sampling. But before I do that, I'm going to take all of it and make them bigger. How about 16 font? Okay, so the first, and this is great if you could do it, is to do a random sample. So that means every individual is equally likely to be surveyed. Do you think you could do a random sample of Americans? What do you think? Do you think you can do that?
No.
Yeah, you can't. How would you? How are you going to get every person equally likely to be surveyed when you can't even find every person? Okay, so I want to let you know random sampling is really hard. Random sampling is really, really hard. Let me give you something that might even feel easy. This is one of my favorite little exercises. What I want you to do is I want you to pick a whole number from 1 to 10. Okay, and I want you to keep that in your head. Pick that number. You can either write it down or put it in your head. And I want everyone to do it. Okay, you all need to be tuned in. Hopefully you're tuned into this. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to put it in the chat box. Okay, there's nothing personal about this, so I can't imagine anyone saying that's too private. There may not be enough of you to really show. So pick a random number from 1 to 10. Okay. Now, if you really did that, then all the numbers should be equally represented. Now, we're kind of a small group to see this. I never get a 10. It never happens. I know 3 of you said you were psychology majors. Maybe you can explain it to me. But I know that psychologically, we do not have the capability to pick random numbers. We can't do it. Okay, and they've studied this, and there's special numbers that people like more than others to pick, even when they think they're doing random. Because if you can truly do a random number, then they should be spread out equally, and they aren't. No one ever gives 10. Okay, and in fact, this group, nothing over 7. Okay, so the point is, random sampling's hard. Now, if I said pick a random number from 1 to 10, and I'll let you do it any way you want to do it, do you think you can do it? What do you think? Any guess on how you can do it? Let me show one way. You can go to my calculator, and the very first thing is random number generator. The low is 1, the high is 10, and I'm going to get a random number. Hey, it was 1. Do you think that picked a random number? Yeah, that picked a random number. You could trust me, by the way, I'm a programmer. I did this right. It really did pick a random number. Okay. And by the way, if you want to do one that you're all familiar with, just ask your smartphone. Pick a random number from 1 to 10. You try it, and it will. Smartphones all do it. Okay. You just talk to it, and it'll pick a random number, and it'll give you one. So computers are great at random numbers. So definitely we can do random numbers. We can't do it by people, but we can do it with a computer. Any questions on that idea? Okay, a simple random number is a little more complicated. And that is every group of n individuals is equally likely to be surveyed. That seems like the same, but it's a little different. Let me give you the kind of the key example. Let's suppose that our class was 60% women and 40% men. And I wanted to make sure that we had kind of the right number of women and men. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 100. I'm going to randomly pick let's say instead of our class, let's say we had a group of 100 people that were 60% women and 40% men. It's a little easier to talk about that way. And I want to pick 10 people. And what I want to do is I'm going to pick 10 randomly selected women and 4 randomly selected men. Then every woman and every man every person has the same probability of being picked, but I'll never end up picking 10 women because I've adjusted it so I'm always picking 6. So a group of 10 women will never get picked, and so they don't have the same probability as a group of 6 women and 4 men if I'm trying to adjust that way. And that's how the difference between these two. Okay, then comes the next one, and the next is the biggie, because random sampling, as I mentioned, is often impossible. So when it's impossible, you often use what's called stratified sampling. So stratified sampling is step by step. So the first step is to determine the strata, and that might be race or gender or income, political affiliation. There's lots of different things. So for the Tahoe Data Tribune one, what do you think might be a good strata?
Income?
Okay, so maybe income, okay? Because income might have a lot to do with whether people are waiting or not waiting or never do the clearing your pine needles, right? So then what you would do is you would pick income. And there's others you could pick too. Whatever you said, by the way, I was gonna say great, by the way. So the point is that you think about what might bias it if you have too many of something, and then you pick that as your strata, and you could actually do multiple strata too. Step 2, you research the percent of each group. That used to be really hard. Now it's really easy. So how do you research the percent of each group? How do I do it? Maybe you would do the same thing, probably. I just ask Google. Google tells me everything. Okay, you may ask Alexa, but pretty much the internet's got this stuff. Okay, so if you wanted to find out the income distribution in the Tahoe area, you can find it within a minute. Okay, if you just type it in, what is the income distribution in the Tahoe area? I bet you it'll tell you. Okay, and then you can get those distributions, the percentage of each group. Any questions on step 2? Okay, step 3 is we decide how many we can sample, how many we have time to do a study of, and we're going to multiply the percent of each group by that sample size, and that will determine the quotas. So let's say we had 10% of people make more than 200,000 a year. I have no idea, but let's say that's what it was. Okay, and let's suppose that we're gonna have time to sample 1,000 people. Then you take 10% of 1,000, that's 100, and you make sure that your quota for those people making, that much money is 100. And the last step, collect the data using those quotas. So if you're going to ask people how much do you make, and then you're going to ask them the question about defensible space. And if you've already asked 100 people that make that multi-million-dollar people, the over 200,000 person, then if the next person says I make over 200,000, you're going to say thank you for your time, and you're not going to even ask them the question because you've established and gotten your quota. So you can have exactly your quota for each of the groups. And that's called stratified sampling. Any questions on stratified sampling? I will let you know that it is definitely the #1 used method for sampling to prevent bias. Okay, and I know that just from reading a lot of articles and stuff. So it's an important one. Then comes the one that I don't remember, someone mentioned. Not then, let's see. There it is. That is cluster sampling. So cluster sampling means selecting several representative clusters and then surveying every individual from each cluster. So let's suppose you wanted to find out the height of pine trees in the Sierra Nevadas. You certainly can't measure every tree. And let's suppose you do cluster sampling, because cluster sampling would probably be the way they do this. So what you would do is, what you might do is take a map of the Sierra Nevadas and segment it out by acreage. Okay, each little square is going to be 1 acre. And then you might pick one of the acres at a high elevation, maybe 1 acre in an area that has a lot of water, 1 acre where it has a steep slope, okay? Maybe a couple acres, because maybe that happens more often, in something that doesn't have a huge amount of water, but not a steep slope. And then you're going to go to those acres that you have selected, and you're going to measure every tree in those acres. And it allows you not to have to travel too much, because you go to those maybe 6 different places in the Sierra Nevadas, spend some hours on each and measure, and you're done. And that's cluster sampling. Any questions on this idea? Okay, how do you think you do cluster sampling if you wanted to sample college students at, say, Lake Tahoe Community College? What do you think the natural cluster is?
Majors?
Okay, well, the problem is that if you pick psychology majors, there's too many of them. You don't have time. Math majors, not too many, by the way. Yeah, classes. Class departments. I like your answer without the word departments. Is that what you do is you pick classes. So you go and check out the schedule of classes. And let's say we offer 300 classes. I don't know how many offer, but let's say we offered 300 classes at our college. Then you're going to pick some representative classes, probably a math class, maybe a history class, maybe a culinary arts class, so that you're not only picking transfer classes, you're picking different kinds of classes. And then you're going to go into those classes, okay? Or I guess modern times, or today's times, you can go online, and you're going to survey online all of the people, all the students in each of those 4 classes that you picked. And that's cluster sampling. One good thing about cluster sampling is it helps you avoid voluntary response bias. Based on what I just said, voluntary response bias, what do you think that means?
That there's no bias.
Yeah, bias based on something. So bias based on, there will be
The
bias.
fact that
Random sample.
Definitely can't do random. Random's too hard. Voluntary response bias, that's the key. All right, so let me ask you something. How many of you have been called, like on your phone, to answer a survey and hung up?
Me.
Okay, you can be honest, because my guess is all of you, am I right? Everyone. I've done it too. Most of the time I answer surveys because I'm a stats professor, but so the problem is that the people who answer the survey are a special kind of person. And you don't want just special kind of people. You want a representation of all people. Okay, so let me give you an example that happened as a disaster in terms of statistical study. And that happened about 4.5 years ago. Little more than 4.5 years ago. What was going on a little more than 4.5 years ago? Don't tell me COVID, by the way.
The 2016 presidential election.
Exactly. Now, if any of you remember, I know it was a long time ago, what did the news say in October about who was going to win?
They had
Hillary Clinton.
Clinton as the projected.
They all had Clinton as projected. Were they right?
Oh no.
Well,
Hope
she
you know
won the
that-
popular vote, but because of the electoral college.
Right, but they weren't even close.
Wasn't she expected to win like the the swing states? I know some of them were like Ohio or like
She was
Florida.
expected to win by a landslide, according to the polls. What went wrong? Any guess? Okay, what went wrong is
Only
Hmm?
only only left-leaning people answered the polls, or mostly left-leaning people answered the polls.
right. People who like Trump were the same kind of people that hang up. Okay, it was the same kind of person. Okay, and by the way, I never get political. I never tell you to like Trump or not like Trump, but I will tell you that that kind of person was much less likely to answer a poll than a person who likes Clinton.
I'm not sure that the two are mutually exclusive.
No, I'm not saying mutually exclusive. It
I
doesn't mean there
concur.
isn't one person. It doesn't mean there's one person. But if you look at the percentage of people who liked Trump who hung up, it was a higher percentage of people than the percent that liked Clinton and hung up. And that's what matters. That's not the same thing as nobody who liked Clinton hung up. Do you see? It's all about the percent. And because of that, they got it wrong. And that's called voluntary response bias, because you volunteer to do the study. Any questions on that? Okay, and sometimes it's a big concern and sometimes it's not. So that one definitely is. In politics, it's a huge concern and they blew it. So that's why I like to bring that one up, because they blew it. Okay, any questions on that? Cluster sampling stops the blowing it, because notice the word every. How do you get every individual to answer? And there's a few ways. Well, if it's students, you have the professor hand out the survey and every student's going to answer, because it's that's our culture. Okay, especially in class, that you're going to answer if I tell you to answer. And by the way, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you how things usually work. Let me tell you another way you get everyone to answer. And I had this. It was a great day for me. I got a call saying, if you answer the survey, we'll give you $100. What do you think I did? I answered the survey, absolutely. And they gave me free lunch too. It was a great day. So that's one way, is you give them like some extra special stuff, like money. Any questions on that?
I guess that within that, there is also the idea of kind of creating a sense of obligation, because I feel like that's easier to do within cluster sampling, because you have a smaller group of people, and because it's more likely with a smaller group of people that if one person answers in the group, other people are going to feel compelled to follow suit, essentially.
Exactly. That's the cultural thing. And that's why I brought up students in class, because that's a cultural thing. Okay. And sometimes it's cultural based on friendship stuff. Sometimes it's based on, classes, and that's kind of how you do things in classes. Whereas the individual, just off random phone calls, that never works. Okay. So cluster sampling, again, it's a nice technique. Often they'll do a combination. We won't do it in this class because it's elementary stats. They'll do a combination of stratified and cluster sampling. But you can imagine it. So I can't get into the details because this is elementary stats. Any questions on this? Okay, what's the most important study that's been done in the last year? At least in my opinion. And my guess is you'll agree.
COVID cases.
COVID cases, I think, is more important, but you're on the right track.
Vaccination.
Vaccination. Okay. Because unfortunately, COVID cases, we haven't found a cure for. There's not much we can do about it. But vaccinations, that we can do something about. So how did they do? I don't know if you've been reading up on it. So let me shoot at Moderna and Pfizer because I know about those much more than J&J, Johnson Johnson. And my guess is Johnson Johnson did the same thing, but I haven't read on theirs. Theirs is a little more recent. And by the way, I got Moderna. I got vaccinated, fully
I
vaccinated.
got Pfizer.
Yeah. And
I got Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, good. You know what? The important thing is you got vaccinated. That's all that really matters. But how do you think they did the study? Did anyone read up on it?
The
I
clinical
didn't,
trial?
but yesterday I got my vaccine, and as we were like leaving, the guy who administered the vaccine gave us this sheet of paper with a link to an app where you would go to report any side effects that you were having from the vaccine.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that was also the case for Pfizer and Moderna, but that was the case at least where I got my vaccine. So
Yeah, that's a post-study study. I'm talking about the original study.
then I have no idea.
Yeah, so I wasn't part of the original study either. So we're talking about several months ago. So let me tell you what they did. They found 40,000 volunteers. Okay, by the way, was there a way to get non-volunteers? The answer is no. Ethics are a big deal. You cannot force someone to be in a clinical trial and take a vaccine that's never been tested. So there are sometimes you just can't do it. Okay, at least in America, because we don't allow that, which I think is a good thing. But they found 40,000 volunteers, and the good news is that they got a nice representative sample of volunteers. And what they did is they numbered all of the volunteers from 1 to 40,000. Then what they did is they got a computer, and they had the computer randomly select 20,000 of those numbers. So basically the computer randomly split in half the 40,000. Any questions on that? Then what they did is the first half, they all gave them the vaccine. They gave them the shot. And of course they observed them afterwards and did all kinds of questionnaires and made sure everything was fine. The other half, they all gave them a shot that didn't have the vaccine, like a shot of water. I don't know specifically what the shot was, but something like water, might have been air, but whatever. So it doesn't.
It probably would have been a saline solution, because you cannot inject water into a person.
We call it a placebo. So they gave him a placebo shot. So it turned out neither the patient, the person, the volunteer, nor the person giving a shot knew whether it was the real vaccine or the saline solution, let's call it. Okay. And so there was just a serial number on the shot that they gave. And then the person who gave the shot wrote down the serial number, wrote down the person's name, and they were checked. Okay. And then they watched them, and they looked to see among the 20,000 that got the shot with the real vaccine and the 20,000 that got the placebo, was there a difference? Okay, this has a very specific type. And oops, let me get here. So I wanted to pop this one in because I really want to make sure we have time for this one, because this is the biggie this year. And that's called a control study. And that means you separate the population into two groups, the control group and the treatment group. And it's especially done in comparison studies, especially in medicine. Okay. And by the way, I have been in one of these. The bad news, I got the placebo, and it was for diarrhea, and it sucked. I won't go into any more detail, but you can get the idea. They did pay me for being part of the study though, but it wasn't worth the money when I was a college student. It's a long time ago. So I've actually been part of it. So anyhow, and that's what it's done. And that way you compare two groups, and there is no, well, I got the shot, so now I can go party and stuff. because everyone got the shot. Do you see? So you're actually comparing well, and it was done right. So if you're wondering, the vaccination study for adults was done very well. And I have read through all of it, and it was great. Okay, they did a really good job. The bad news, the children was not done well. So I worry about that. Their sample size is too small. They used about 2,200 children, which was not a big enough sample size. We'll get into that another day. But for adults, it was done really well. So you should feel very comfortable with the vaccine for either Pfizer or Moderna. And J&J, I'm sure was fine too, but I just haven't read that one.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm sure it was fine. Okay, a couple more types of sampling, because we have 5 minutes left. And that is systematic sampling. So this involves first ordering the population and then surveying every nth individual. So let me give you a personal example of this. And it was from one of my students. And it was one of my former students. Many years after this was my student. And he had a business to make towels, hotel towels. And he wanted to show that his towels are better than the ones made in China. Better meaning that if you wash it a bunch of times, then it won't fall apart, it stays in good condition. And he wanted it to a study, he wanted to show it statistically, and asked me to help come up with a sample. Because you can't do that with all the towels, because then he goes out of business. Can't use every towel he's ever made, or he has no towels left. It's too expensive. So what I suggested, and he ended up doing, was what's called systematic sampling. And it's really easy to order the towels coming out of the manufacturing process. So they're made, and the next one's made, and the next one's made, just coming down the assembly line. So what I had him do was every 1,000th towel, he grabbed, pulled out, and put those towels in the washing machine, and over again, and looked at them. So that was an example of systematic sampling, because he was able to order all the towels and then pull every nth one. Okay, and he did this. The China ones was a little more difficult, but I won't get into that detail. So do you think you could systematically sample people on Earth? What do you think? Do you think you could do systematic sampling for humans? Any thoughts? Any ideas? I don't see anyone answering. Okay, the answer is absolutely not. There's no way you could order every person on Earth. You can't list them. So this is really good in manufacturing. The college could do it with students, because they could say every maybe 50th student who registered for classes, grab that student and do a survey. Okay, as long as they can convince them to take the survey. But for just general people, good luck. It's not going to happen. Any questions on systematic sampling? Okay, the last one is actually what we started with, and that's called convenience sampling. And that means you just do whatever's easy. So the Tahoe Tribune example, that's convenience sampling. Whoever happens to fill out your survey, that's done. And that's convenience sampling. Do you think that's a good idea if you want to prevent bias?
No.
No, it's horrible. It's horrible. Okay, so convenience sampling should not be done in any like major published thing if bias is going to come from it, and usually bias comes from it, especially if it's in psychology or something like that. You don't have, in fact, people don't have the ability to randomly select people just by looking. They're going to select people that look like themselves, and they've shown that in psychology or sociology. So even that is going to be convenience sampling. If you think you've just grabbed the people randomly, you can't do that. So convenience sampling means do what's easy. So nice, easy examples are the Tribune one, or how about post on social media? Hey, can anyone answer my survey? That would be total convenience sampling. Any questions on that? So again, lots of different kinds of sampling techniques. And are you responsible for knowing all these? Absolutely. Okay, I want to let you know, does this feel like a math class? Not yet, right?
Not really.
It will. Okay, so we are going to just let you know today was just about sampling, a lot of vocabulary, language, and also go over the syllabus. That changes. It's going to start feeling a little bit more mathy starting Thursday. So I want to give you a little heads up. So if you love math and you hate it today, then the class will get better for you. But of course, the reverse is true too. If you hate math and you love today, it may get worse for you because today was all about language. But we will start doing math on Thursday. I want to let you know that it is 5:50. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording and stop the sharing.